Glory to word. Glory to sound. Glory unto the power of the Most High, Haile Selassie, King Ras Tafari. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Haile Selassie, King Ras Tafari. Concerning Tamrin the merchant. And there was a certain wise man, the leader of a merchant's caravan, whose name was Tamrin, and he used to load 520 camels, and he possessed about 73 ships. Now, at that time, King Solomon wished to build the house of God, and he sent out messages among all the merchants in the east, and in the west, and in the north, and in the south, bidding the merchants come and take gold and silver from him, so that he might take from them whatsoever was necessary for the work. And certain men reported to him concerning this rich Ethiopian merchant, and Solomon sent to him a message, and told him to bring whatsoever he wished from the country of Arabia, red gold and black wood that could not be eaten by worms, and sapphires. And that merchant, whose name was Tamrin, the merchant of the queen of Ethiopia, went to Solomon the king. And Solomon took whatsoever he desired from him, and he gave to the merchant whatsoever he wished for in great abundance. Now that merchant was a man of great understanding, and he saw and comprehended the wisdom of Solomon, and he marveled thereat, and he watched carefully, so that he might learn how the king made answer by his word, and understand his judgment, and the readiness of his mouth, and the discreetness of his speech, and the manner of his life, and his sitting down, and his rising up, and his occupations, and his love, and his administration, and his table, and his law. To those to whom Solomon had to give orders, he spake with humility and graciousness, and when they had committed a fault, he admonished them gently, for he ordered his house in the wisdom and fear of God, and he smiled graciously on the fools, and set them on the right road, and he dealt gently with the maidservants. He opened his mouth in parables, and his words were sweeter than the purest honey. His whole behavior was admirable, and his whole aspect pleasant. For wisdom is beloved by men of understanding, and is rejected by fools. And when that merchant had seen all these things, he was astonished, and he marveled exceedingly, for those who were wont to see Solomon held him in complete affection, and he became their teacher. And because of his wisdom and excellence, those who had once come to him did not wish to leave him and go away from him. And the sweetness of his words was like water to the man who is athirst, and like bread to the hungry man, and like healing to the sick man, and like apparel to the naked man. And he was like a father to the orphans, and he judged with righteousness, and accepted the person of no man, meaning he was impartial. He had glory and riches which God had given unto him in great abundance, namely gold and silver and precious stones and rich apparel and cattle and sheep and goats innumerable. Now, in the days of Solomon, the king, gold was as common as bronze, and silver as lead, and bronze and lead and iron were as abundant as the grass of the fields and the reeds of the desert, and cedar wood was also abundant. And God had given him glory and riches and wisdom and grace in such abundance that there was none like unto him among his predecessors, and among those who came after him there was none like unto him. 23. How the merchant returned to Ethiopia. And it came to pass that the merchant Tamrin wished to return to his own country, and he went to Solomon and bowed low before him, and embraced him, and said unto him, Peace be to thee, my majesty. Send me away, and let me depart to my country, to my lady. For I have tarried long in beholding thy glory and thy wisdom, and the abundance of dainty meats, wherewith thou hast regaled me. And now I would depart to my lady. Would that I could abide with thee, even as one of the very least of thy servants. For blessed are they who hear thy voice and perform thy commands. Would that I could abide here and never leave thee. But thou must send me away to my lady, because of what hath been committed to my charge, so that I may give unto her her property. And as for myself, I am her servant. And Solomon went into his house, and gave unto him whatever valuable thing he desired for the country of Ethiopia. And he sent them away in peace. And Tamrin bade him farewell, and went forth, and journeyed along his road, and came to his lady, and delivered over to her all the possessions which he had brought. And he related unto her how he had arrived at the country of Judah and Jerusalem, and how he had gone into the presence of Solomon the king, and all that he had heard and seen. And he told her how Solomon administered just judgment, and how he spake with authority, and how he decided rightly in all the matters which he inquired into, and how he returned soft and gracious answers, and how there was nothing false about him, and how he appointed inspectors over the 700 woodmen who hauled the timber, and 800 masons who hewed the stone, and how he sought to learn from all the merchants and dealers concerning the cunning craft and the working thereof, and how he received information and imparted it twofold, and how all his handicraft and his works were performed with wisdom. And each morning Tamrin related to the queen about all the wisdom of Solomon, how he administered judgment and did what was just, and how he ordered his table, and how he made feasts, and how he taught wisdom, and how he directed his servants and all his affairs on a wise system, and how they went on their errands at his command, and how no man defrauded another, and how no man purloined the property of his neighbor, and how there was neither a thief nor a robber in his days. For in his wisdom he knew those who had done wrong, and he chastised them and made them afraid, and they did not repeat their evil deeds, but they lived in a state of peace, which had mingled therein the fear of the king. All these things did Tamrin relate unto the queen, and each morning he recalled the things that he had seen with the king, and described them unto her. And the queen was struck dumb with wonder at the things she heard from the merchant, her servant. And she thought in her heart that she would go to him, and she wept by reason of the greatness of her pleasure in those things that Tamarin had told her. And she was exceedingly anxious to go to him. But when she pondered upon the long journey, she thought that it was too far and too difficult to undertake. And time after time, she asked Tamarin questions about Solomon, and time after time, Tamarin told her about him, and she became very wishful and most desirous to go, that she might hear his wisdom and see his face and embrace him and petition his royalty. And her heart inclined to go to him, for God had made her heart incline to go, and had made her to desire it. 24. How the queen made ready to set out on her journey. And the queen said unto them, Hearken, O ye who are my people, and give ye ear to my words, for I desire wisdom, and my heart seeketh to find understanding. I am smitten with the love of wisdom, and I am constrained by the cords of understanding, for wisdom is far better than treasure of gold and silver, and wisdom is the best of everything that hath been created on the earth. Now unto what under the heavens shall wisdom be compared? It is sweeter than honey, and it maketh one to rejoice more than wine, and it illumineth more than the sun, and it is to be loved more than precious stones, and it fatteneth more than oil, and it satisfieth more than dainty meats, and it giveth a man more renown than thousands of gold and silver. It is a source of joy for the heart, and a bright and shining light for the eyes, and a giver of speed to the feet, and a shield for the breast, and a helmet for the head, and chainwork for the neck, and a belt for the loins. It maketh the ears to hear, and hearts to understand. It is a teacher of those who are learned, and it is a consoler of those who are discreet and prudent, and it giveth fame to those who seek after it. And as for a kingdom, it cannot stand without wisdom, and riches cannot be preserved without wisdom. The foot cannot keep the place wherein it hath set itself without wisdom. And without wisdom, that which the tongue speaketh is not acceptable. Wisdom is the best of all treasures. He who heapeth up gold and silver doeth so to no profit without wisdom. But he who heapeth up wisdom, no man can filch it from his heart. That which fools heap up, the wise consume. And because of the wickedness of those who do evil, the righteous are praised. And because of the wicked acts of fools, the wise are beloved. Wisdom is an exalted thing, and a rich thing. I will love her like a mother, and she shall embrace me like a child. I will follow the footprints of wisdom, and she shall protect me forever. I will seek after wisdom, and she shall be with me forever. I will follow her footprints, and she shall not cast me away. I will lean upon her, and she shall be unto me a wall of adamant. I will seek asylum with her, and she shall be unto me my power and strength. I will rejoice in her, and she shall be unto me abundant grace. For it is right for us to follow the footprints of wisdom, and for the soles of our feet to stand upon the threshold of the gates of wisdom. Let us seek her, and we shall find her. Let us love her, and she will not withdraw herself from us. Let us pursue her, and we shall overtake her. Let us ask, and we shall receive. And let us turn our hearts to her, so that we may never forget her. If we remember her, she will have us in remembrance. And in connection with fools thou shalt not remember wisdom, for they do not hold her in honor, and she doth not love them. The honoring of wisdom is the honoring of the wise man, and the loving of wisdom is the loving of the wise man. Love the wise man, and withdraw not thyself from him, and by the sight of him thou shalt become wise. Hearken to the utterance of his mouth, so that thou mayest become like unto him. Watch the place whereon he hath set his foot, and leave him not, so that thou mayest receive the remainder of his wisdom. And I love him, merely on hearing concerning him, and without seeing him. And the whole story of him that hath been told me is to me as the desire of my heart, and like water to the thirsty man. And her nobles, and her slaves, and her handmaidens, and her counselors answered and said unto her, O our Lady, as for wisdom, it is not lacking in thee, and it is because of thy wisdom that thou lovest wisdom. And too, for us, if thou goest, we will go with thee, and if thou sittest down, we will sit down with thee. Our death shall be with thy death, and our life with thy life. Then the queen made ready to set out on her journey, with great pomp and majesty, and with great equipment and many preparations. For by the will of God her heart desired to go to Jerusalem, so that she might hear the wisdom of Solomon, for she had hearkened eagerly. So she made ready to set out, and 797 camels were loaded, and mules and asses innumerable were loaded, and she set out on her journey, and followed her road without pause, and her heart had confidence in God. Glory to Word. Glory to Sound. Glory unto the power of the Most High, Haile Selassie, King Ras Tafari. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Most High, Haile Selassie, King Ras Tafari. And she arrived in Jerusalem, and brought to the king very many precious gifts, which he desired to possess greatly. And he paid her great honor, and rejoiced. And he gave her a habitation in the royal palace near him. And he sent her food, both for the morning and evening meal, each time 15 measures by the cori of finely ground white meal, cooked with oil and gravy and sauce in abundance, and 30 measures by the cori of crushed white meal, wherefrom bread for 350 people was made, with the necessary platters and trays, and 10 stalled oxen, and 5 bulls, and 50 sheep, without counting the kids, and deer, and gazelles, and fatted fowls, and a vessel of wine containing 60 jarat measures, and 30 measures of old wine, and 25 singing men, and 25 singing women, and the finest honey and rich sweets, and some of the food which he himself ate, and some of the wine whereof he drank. And every day he arrayed her in 11 garments, which bewitched the eyes. And he visited her, and was gratified, and she visited him, and was gratified. And she saw his wisdom, and his just judgments, and his splendor, and his grace, and heard the eloquence of his speech. And she marveled in her heart, and was utterly astonished in her mind. And she recognized in her understanding, and perceived very clearly with her eyes how admirable he was. And she wondered exceedingly because of what she saw and heard with him, how perfect he was in composure, and wise in understanding, and pleasant in graciousness, and commanding in stature. And she observed the subtlety of his voice, and the discreet utterances of his lips, and that he gave his commands with dignity, and that his replies were made quietly, and with the fear of God. All these things she saw, and she was astonished at the abundance of his wisdom, and there was nothing whatsoever wanting in his word and speech, but everything that he spake was perfect. And Solomon was working at the building of the house of God, and he rose up and went to the right and to the left and forward and backward. And he showed the workmen the measurement and weight and the space covered by the materials. And he told the workers in metal how to use the hammer and the drill and the chisel. And he showed the stonemasons the angle and the circle and the surface measure. And everything was wrought by his order, and there was none who set himself in opposition to his word, for the light of his heart was like a lamp in the darkness, and his wisdom was as abundant as the sand. And of the speech of the beasts and the birds there was nothing hidden from him, and he forced the devils to obey him by his wisdom. And he did everything by means of the skill which God gave him when he made supplication to him. For he did not ask for victory over his enemy, and he did not ask for riches and fame, but he asked God to give him wisdom and understanding, whereby he might rule his people and build his house, and beautify the work of God, and all that he had given him in wisdom and understanding. (26) How the king held converse with the queen. And the queen Makeda spoke unto King Solomon, saying, Blessed art thou, my lord, in that such wisdom and understanding have been given unto thee. For myself I only wish that I could be as one of the least of thine handmaidens, so that I could wash thy feet, and hearken to thy wisdom, and apprehend thy understanding, and serve thy majesty, and enjoy thy wisdom. Oh, how greatly have pleased me thy answering, and the sweetness of thy voice, and the beauty of thy going, and the graciousness of thy words, and the readiness thereof. The sweetness of thy voice maketh the heart to rejoice, and maketh the bones fat, and giveth courage to hearts, and goodwill and grace to the lips, and strength to the gate. I look upon thee, and I see that thy wisdom is immeasurable, and thine understanding inexhaustible, and that it is like unto a lamp in the darkness, and like unto a pomegranate in the garden, and like unto a pearl in the sea, and like unto the morning star among the stars, and like unto the light of the moon in the mist, and like unto a glorious dawn and sunrise in the heavens. And I give thanks unto him that brought me hither, and showed thee to me, and made me to tread upon the threshold of thy gate, and made me to hear thy voice. And King Solomon answered and said unto her, Wisdom and understanding spring from thee, thyself. As for me, I only possess them in the measure in which the God of Israel hath given them to me, because I asked and entreated them from him. And thou, although thou dost not know the God of Israel, hast this wisdom which thou hast made to grow in thine heart, and it hath made thee come to see me, the vassal and slave of my God, and the building of his sanctuary, which I am establishing, and wherein I serve and move round about my lady, the tabernacle of the law of the God of Israel, the holy and heavenly Zion. Now I am the slave of my God, and I am not a free man. I do not serve according to my own will, but according to his will. And this speech of mine springeth not from myself, but I give utterance only to what he maketh me to utter. Whatsoever he commandeth me, that I do. Wheresoever he wisheth me to go, thither I go. Whatsoever he teacheth me, that I speak. That concerning which he giveth me, wisdom I understand. For from being only dust, he hath made me flesh, and from being only water, he hath made me a solid man, and from being only an ejected drop, which shot forth upon the ground, would have dried up on the surface of the earth, he hath fashioned me in his own likeness, and hath made me in his own image. (27) Concerning the laborer. And as Solomon was talking in this wise with the queen, he saw a certain laborer carrying a stone upon his head, and a skin of water upon his neck and shoulders, and his food and his sandals were tied about his loins, and there were pieces of wood in his hands. His garments were ragged and tattered, and water from the skin of water dripped down upon his feet. And the laborer passed before Solomon. And as he was going by, the king said unto him, Stand still. And the laborer stood still. And the king turned to the queen and said unto her, Look at this man. Wherein am I superior to this man? And in what am I better than this man? And wherein shall I glory over this man? For I am a man, and dust, and ashes, who tomorrow will become worms and corruption, and yet at this moment I appear like one who will never die. Who would make any complaint against God, if he were to give unto this man as he hath given to me, and if he were to make me even as this man is? Are we not both of us beings, that is to say, men. As is his death, so is my death, and as is his life, so is my life. Yet this man is stronger to work than I am, for God giveth power to those who are feeble, just as it pleaseth him to do so. And Solomon said unto the laborer, Get thee to thy work. And he spoke further unto the queen, saying, What is the use of us, the children of men, if we do not exercise kindness and love upon earth? Are we not all nothingness, mere grass of the field, which weareth in the season, and is burnt in the fire? On the earth we provide ourselves with dainty meats, and we wear costly apparel. But even whilst we are alive, we are stinking corruption. We provide ourselves with sweet scents and delicate unguents. But even whilst we are alive, we are dead in sin and in transgression. Being wise, we become fools through disobedience and deeds of iniquity. Being held in honor, we become contemptible through magic and sorcery and the worship of idols. Now the man who is a being of honor, who was created in the image of God, if he doeth that which is good, becometh like God. But the man who is a thing of nothingness, if he committeth sin, become like unto the devil, the arrogant devil, who refused to obey the command of his Creator. And all the arrogant among men walk in his way, and they shall be judged with him. And God loveth the lowly minded, and those who practice humility walk in his way, and they shall rejoice in his kingdom. Blessed is the man who knoweth wisdom, that is to say, compassion and the fear of God. And when the queen heard this, she said, How thy voice doth please me, and how greatly do thy words and thy utterance of thy mouth delight me. Tell me now, whom is it right for me to worship? We worship the sun, according as our fathers have taught us to do, because we say that the sun is